Hey guys, what's up? Today we are going to be talking about student ministry on campus. I've got a buddy of mine here that I'm going to interview. He works for First Priority, which is an organization primarily first in South Florida and also throughout the country. I've known our guest for several years now. He's not only a friend, but he is a mentor of mine. He has had such a great impact in my own life, challenging me to do a lot of things that are outside of my own comfort zone. And so today I would love to introduce you guys to John Harvey.
Hey, thanks, Danny. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, man.
Awesome,
I've
man.
missed you. It's been
It's been about a year
since we've
we
actually
last
seen
talked.
each other.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's good.
And so it's always great to reunite with friends. I moved away about a year ago, and so we texted each other, but it's never as good as actually like seeing each other face to face.
Yeah. It was fun to have lunch and catch up and just hear about life. So
Exactly.
good.
And so, John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are, and so that way our audience knows kind of where you're coming from.
Cool. So, I am the director for First Priority for Palm Beach and the Treasure Coast. I oversee 5 counties of clubs and schools, and that's kind of what my background is. I have 32 years of ministry experience, which means I'm just really old.
You're definitely not old.
Most of it has involved student ministry at some level. And I've got an amazing wife and 3 incredible children that are just amazing, do all kinds of different things. They're all adults now, college age and up. And then we've got one kind of bonus kid that lives with us who just graduated high school. And so full family life, really involved in church, and just, that's my passion as students. I've always wanted to be a part of student ministry. And so.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about First Priority. What is First Priority?
Yeah, so First Priority is basically a resource for students to start clubs on their campus. We operate in middle school and high schools, public school campuses, and our goal is to partner with local churches to reach the campus for Christ. And so what we do is we will resource students and partner them with a student mentor, a student pastor, somebody from a student ministry at a church, get them connected on campus, give them the resources to reach their campus for Christ, and then help them have a strategy, have a very focused strategy on how to share the gospel on campus. And so we just come alongside and resource that and enable students to lead their campus, reach their campus for Christ.
Awesome. So why is, in your opinion, on-campus ministry so important?
Yeah, this is a great question. And one of the things that people fail to realize is the importance of reaching students at the youngest age. Mm-hmm. I heard somebody say recently that in the race to a child's heart, whoever gets there first wins. Mm-hmm. Well, by the time students are in middle school and high school, a lot of things are already fighting for their attention and their affections. And so if we can come and we can get a student excited about following Jesus, then what we know is if they get excited about following Jesus, they meet Jesus in a First Priority club, get connected to a local church, which is key, get trained and discipled through that church, they get empowered to share their faith, they will continue on in their faith. They won't have the drop-off. And one of the most dangerous things, I think, is for the church as a whole, the Big C church, to miss the idea that being on a public school campus is not only an option for us, I think it's a necessity for us.
It definitely is.
A lot of people think, man, churches can't go on campus, the separation of church and state and all those kinds of things. And that's absolutely not true. Through the Equal Access Act, as long as clubs are student-led, they're student-initiated, they're student-run, then the gospel can go forward, all over campus. And that's what we want to help students be able to do is reach their campus for Christ, because it's just such a vital age.
Yeah, and it's awesome that it's students reaching other students.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times people think the adults are the ones that come in and reach the students. No, we're just doing the equipping.
Right.
We're just doing the equipping. And I've actually participated in First Priority before under John's leadership. And it's cool when you see another student share the gospel and actually lead someone else to Christ.
Right.
And that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing to actually see and experience. And you can step back, especially as a youth pastor, you can step back and you're like, wow, that was awesome. That was an awesome Jesus moment that I got to experience, and I don't get to take any credit for it, you know? And so a lot of times we get this complex of it's got to be us. And when it's even more powerful when it's one of the students actually.
Yeah. Well, you did First Priority for what? 5 years, 4 years?
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, quite a while. And you actually had my daughters. You had Kimberly and then my bonus kid, Danny. And one of the things that was awesome was watching them grow in their leadership in First Priority, of inviting their friends. People who would never come into a church setting with them would come to club for pizza most of the time.
Exactly.
But they would come and then they would hear about Christ. And the life change that happens on campus is just amazing. This past year, we, of course, got shut down because of COVID and all that. Yeah. But our on-campus clubs, we were on 220 plus campuses this year. We saw 3,800 students come to know Christ before we had to come off of campus in March.
Yeah.
And
that's just in South Florida.
That's just in South Florida. In the last 2 years, we'd seen over 5,000 students each year come to know Christ. So it's an amazing mission field. I think it's the largest mission field in North America. And unfortunately, a lot of churches aren't tapping into it because they don't know they can, or they don't know how to, or they just think it's too much effort, which is really sad.
Exactly. So kind of explain to our audience, what is the strategy that First Priority uses? Kind of walk us through what does an actual campus club kind of look like? Yeah.
So our strategy is what we call epic. We want to have epic clubs, just something that will attract students. We want to do it with excellence and all those things. But epic all stands for something. We have a 4-week cycle that we're using now. The first week is called Equip Week, and that's where we are teaching Christian students how to share their faith. So we will give them a tool. We'll spend weeks and weeks helping them learn how to communicate the gospel story to their friends. And once they do that, then they feel confident. They're ready to do that because they want to share the story, but they just don't know how. And so we give them the tool how to in Equip Week. The second week is what we call Prepare Week, and that's where we spend time planning and practicing the tools that we are teaching students so that they're really comfortable and they're ready to lead the next week, which we call Invite Week. The third week is called Invite Week. We encourage our students to invite their non-believing friends to club. We will bring in pizzas or tacos or candy or something, make it a gospel party right there on campus. And typically one of the best things that happens is a student shares the story of Jesus and invites their friends to respond to the gospel right there. And then the fourth week in our cycle, our epic cycle, is Connect Week, so that we are trying to talk to the students about the importance of connecting to a local church. That it's great that they have a relationship with Christ, it's great they come to First Priority, but they got to get connected to a local church so they can have the full experience of what it means to follow Christ. So our strategy is epic: equip, prepare, invite, and connect. And that helps us to really stay focused and targeted on what we're doing.
And what I love about First Priority is First Priority is constantly trying to refine itself. Because I've been out of it for a little over a year now. And even just listening to what you're saying is different from what I was in it just a year ago.
Well, this is what we're launching this year. What we did last year was the same program you were in. It's a 3-week cycle, is a little different. This year it is a brand new cycle that we are trying to launch into, because we think it's just going to give us a little sharper focus. And so our goal is to always figure out how do we do it the best we can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And how does typically First Priority find its support?
Yeah.
Where does it get its support
from?
So
we're a nonprofit ministry, so everything that we get is raised. We do fundraisers, events, partners. We have monthly partners that some people give $20 a month, some people give $1,000 a month. They just are supporters that way. We do events to try to raise funds, and then churches partner with us, and they will include us in like their missions budget. So they may have a group that a missions team that that helps decide how they spend their missions budget, and they'll sometimes include us in that. But yeah, it's basically personal donations. What we know through our research over the years is that it takes $240 to reach a student for Christ. And so if you think about that, that becomes $20 a month over the course of a school year, helps us to reach a student for Christ. And so that's just the cost for us. It cost us about $5,000 per campus to run a club for the whole year. Yeah. And so we're just, partners. People join with us on the mission and support us that way.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand it takes money. Like when John was talking about having pizza and all that kind of stuff, it takes money to do that.
Right.
And so that pizza, Domino's, and all these pizza places don't give out that stuff for free.
Right.
And so it takes money to be able to do that and to be able to get on campus and do those things. And so this is where the money's going to. And the pizza, if you ever deal with teenagers, pizza is always a great hook.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always a great hook.
Absolutely.
It's like you literally walk around, hey, I got free pizza, and like people just come in.
Yeah.
And so that's usually the hook. And when I was in it that last year, it was every third week, and now I see it's every fourth week.
It's every fourth week, yeah. And we really felt like it just gave us more time to train our students. Adding the prepare week in, that's the week that we kind of put in there. We have equip week the first week, and then prepare week. It gives students a little more confidence in they are ready and they're leading their friends in invite week. So it just gives us a whole nother week of training them and working through things with them. So we've written all brand new curriculum this year. It's all going to be rolled out. It's all free on our website if you want to check it out, firstpriority.cc. Everything is right there. And so it's just a way for us to focus on our mission.
So if one of our viewers out there is maybe a youth pastor or somebody, and they're somewhere out, maybe not in South Florida,
right?
And they're wondering, okay, I'm out here in maybe a small little town or something like that, and I'm from a small little town, so I'm kind of in the same boat, and there's no first priority around. How would you go about kind of starting that up? Yeah,
so the best thing to do, the first thing I would say is contact us. Let us talk to you and see kind of where you are and what you've already got, and then start in one school. Like if you're a student pastor, don't look and go, there are 40 schools in my town, I'm going to try to reach all of them. No, start with one, and then talk to other student pastors and get them connected. But let us be a resource for you. So you may not have a chapter in your town, you may not have a first priority actually set up in your town, but we can help you, and this is what you can do, this is what it looks like, and we can give you all the material. Like I said, all of our stuff is online, it's free. We want people to use it, we want people to do it. We'll give you the training, and we will help you connect with other people in town and make something happen. But find one school, pray about it, figure out who do you have as a resource. So really the three elements that we have to make a school start is, one, you have to have a student leader. So find a student in your youth group who's ready to lead a club on campus. Second, you have to have a faculty sponsor, and they become a key because they are the conduit between the administration and the club on campus. They keep everything going the way the school requires it to go. And then the third step is find a campus mentor, find a student pastor, somebody really connected into a church that's willing to go spend an hour a week on campus and help students be equipped to share their faith and lead students to Christ, and go for it. And but like I said, we'll give you all the training. We'll help you. First Priority of America will help you. We've got a lot of resources. We've got a lot of years in ministry doing this.
And First Priority is going everywhere right now.
We are doing everywhere. One of my best friends, who was actually our Palm Beach director, Jeff Stanford, just left South Florida to launch in Springfield, Missouri, and he is just getting that off the ground. But we're in all kinds of cities. We're in about 40 cities across the United States and regions, and we would love to partner with you. And we're always looking for who's willing to start a new region. And so there may be some people there. Maybe God's calling you to start Central Florida, man. We just don't know.
Who knows? Who knows, man? Who knows? I'm just trying to start it up right in my own hometown. And so, this is something that I'm actually trying to, this is why I want to do an interview with John, because I'm actually in the middle of trying to actually start this up. And so we were making some good headway to get things started. And then all of a sudden, just things, our teacher sponsor kind of went by the wayside, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so, we kind of had to squash those plans, and I'm kind of waiting a little bit of time to see what our school district is going to do.
Right.
I know all the counties around us, they're going to make final decisions mid-July as to what's going on, but unfortunately right now
nobody knows.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Well, here's the interesting thing. COVID was a blessing and a curse for us. It was a curse because we couldn't be on campus, obviously, all of those things. But what we saw, and our staff we pivoted really quickly to figure out how could we do something virtually. And we ended up having 78 virtual clubs that still met every week. And we actually had schools that had never had a physical club before, but they launched because they could meet online and do some things online. And so we actually launched some brand new clubs in the midst of the COVID crisis virtually. So when they come back to school in the fall, whatever that looks like, we're going to have some new schools that have clubs that never had them before. So
sometimes it's everyone always focuses on the negative aspect, and a lot of times in ministry, sometimes in a crisis, you just got the word out today, nowadays in the church realm is pivot. Right. Everyone thinks of the Friends episode.
Pivot.
But it's been that way in ministry. You literally have to pivot and figure out what way. I mean, this is why I started doing these videos. Is we shut down the student ministry because we had to. Everyone went on shutdown. And so I just started, making videos for Sunday morning and Wednesday night. And that's kind of how this whole thing birthed, with doing these videos. And so sometimes crisis leads to other things.
Oh, yeah.
And God just blesses you in return for taking your time and taking your effort to go out beyond, into the unknown. Right.
Well, crisis always leads to innovation, and it makes us do things we would never think of doing on our own. And what happens is I've watched two distinct groups appear. I've watched the people who couldn't get past the crisis, and they just were paralyzed. And so they felt like, well, I can't really do ministry because I can't be with people. And then I've watched the organizations and the individuals say, I just have to do it in a new way, and I'm going to do it with excellence, and I'm going to do the best I can. And those people have thrived through this time because they made a decision that they're going to do whatever they can do in the situation, not focused on what they can't do.
Exactly.
And if we have focused on what we can't do, there's a lot of things we can't do.
Exactly.
But what are the things we can do really well? Exactly. And, for First Priority, we made a decision. It really caused us to get back to our core values: gospel-centered, ownership, teamwork, prayer, doing things with excellence, just all of these different things. It's an acronym, GOT Peace. I won't go through them all, but our dynamic was it made us shift focus of, okay, how do we do what we're doing now to match our vision for what we would do if we were physically on campus? And when you see that and you see the opportunity, it causes you to thrive, to move forward instead of just being complacent and waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been, and I've seen that in my area as well. There are churches that didn't do anything. That didn't do anything. And the churches that started innovating, I mean, at my church, I'm in a small little church in a rural area, and we shut down. I think we were only technically shut down for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks max. And then we decided to, I think it was Easter Sunday, we were going to have service, but we did basically drive-in church. And so our pastor got his hands on a radio transmitter, and everybody parked their cars in front of in front of a trailer. We had a trailer for a stage.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
we basically did that for several weeks until we reopened at the end of May.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of churches do drive-in church. I saw one church did it, and they actually got a scissor lift, and the pastor went up in the scissor lift so everybody could see him, and then they just used their sound equipment and kind of spoke into the community. So it's not about like, is this ideal? Because none of this is ideal for anybody. It's still, though, the gospel of Jesus still goes forward. And if you look through history, every time there's been trials and difficulties, the church of Jesus Christ has adapted and grown, because that's what the gospel does. The gospel is that powerful. And so we got to never lose sight of that. And that's easy to do when it's tough
And that's
times.
what I've reminded a lot of people of, is if you look at the church, not just one church, but the church.
Yeah.
Since its inception, in times of crisis or in times of persecution, it has actually flourished the most. And a lot of times in crisis like this, it causes us to get out of our own comfort zones.
Right.
And a lot of churches, it's one of the things that happened in my church, is we got stuck. We got stuck because we were doing things the same old. Well, now we have to reinvent everything. Yeah. Because now we have new guidelines to do things. Now we got to social distance. We got to do certain things. And so, now one of the things, I told you this at lunchtime, one of the things that my church is doing is now we're figuring out how to do our own video-driven Bible studies. Yeah. And so do small groups at homes and stuff like that. Yeah. That way we're minimizing our exposure and all this kind of stuff. And so a lot of churches, like we're doing right now, I mean, I figured out how to do all this stuff on the fly. Right. And so it's something, no school. I didn't go to school to learn how to make videos and do all this edit videos and all this kind of stuff. But yet you pivot and you learn how to change up what you're doing and adapt to your circumstances so that you can keep doing things with excellence. Yeah. And so, I'm hoping that if you're out there and you're stuck and you don't know what to do, reach out to people all around you. There's so many resources out there. Yeah. First Priority is one of them. There's all kinds of resources that you can go to online that are free resources. And so if you're struggling with what to do, where you take your student ministry next, I know some student ministries still aren't even meeting. Right. Yeah. Most student ministries are canceling camps or doing like what we're doing, just a one-day deal. Mm-hmm. So we're doing, like, technically right now, like I told you earlier, I'm supposed to be in Guatemala on a mission trip right now. Yeah. But with the virus, that's just not going to happen. Right. And so we've had to pivot. We've had to figure things out. And sometimes a lot of churches have some great ideas. And so even if you're in a smaller church, sometimes the smaller church is actually a blessing right now, because some of the larger churches, because of their size, they still can't meet yet. Yeah. So we're in the lobby of the church that I attend, one of the campuses of the church I attend. It's huge. We've got 13 campuses around South Florida. We haven't met for 16 weeks, and the church still isn't going to be able to meet in person for, another few weeks. And so if they had made the decision of like, well, man, just figure it out on your own, the church would fall apart. But what's happened is they figured out ways. Online communities have been amazing, online worship experiences. And then utilizing their staff to feed the community and do different things, it just gives you the sense that we can't do everything that we thought we could do, but there are some things that we could do that will still give us the opportunity to fulfill our mission. Exactly. And that's the key. And one of the things I've found is even take away the COVID crisis. One of the things that we find in campus ministry, because that's really the focus of this time, is talking about on-campus ministry, is that a lot of times churches feel like they can't do it, and student pastors feel like, I can't give the time out of my office to be on campus. And senior pastors are like, man, I'm letting you go work for this other ministry, sort of, even though they're volunteers. And really, we got to change that mindset. The mindset needs to be, we're going to give you an opportunity to spend an hour a week
where students spend the majority of their week on campus. And in that hour, you're going to be able to equip students to share Christ. You're going to be able to share Christ. And you're going to be able to build your ministry off of students who need a church to connect to. But a lot of times, churches are fearful of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes senior pastors are afraid of, I can't let the student guy be gone. And student pastors are afraid of, I can't be gone because my senior pastor is going to be upset. I always talk about this in two different ways. I was speaking to a group of senior pastors, and I said, if your student pastor is unwilling to be on campus, you need to find a new student pastor. And then I said, if you're the reason they're not on campus, then you need to get out of your ministry. Because what pastor, if I was able to tell a pastor, you can go spend an hour a week with a majority of your people in your church, the age group that you're trying to reach for Christ, to share Christ with them, what pastor would turn that down? But yet there's this tension of student pastors doing that. And man, we just got to get past that, because if we don't reach students where they are and we don't reach them at a young age, they are going to graduate high school never hearing the gospel. And that's a tragedy. Yeah. And especially when we can take the gospel to where they are on campus.
One of the reasons why I loved doing on-campus ministry with First Priority was because as a pastor, a lot of times you get insulated, and you a lot of times you end up in the office a lot of times, and if you're not careful, you will only talk to Christian people.
That's right.
All the stinking time. And there's nothing wrong with talking to the Christian people, but what ends up happening is you forget what it's like to encounter people who are lost. And so you're telling your own students, you need to reach people for the lost. You need to reach people for the lost. But you're never around people who are lost.
Yeah.
And so we justify our ministry as like, I'm just doing the ministry. I'm just doing the ministry. But then when we get on campus, you're surrounded by not only your own students, but by lost students.
Right.
And you're helping them at that very moment do exactly what you've been telling them to do, which is reach students, reach lost students. And so that's essential. That's why I used to do it all the time, because if I'm going to ask students to do it, I better be doing it myself.
Absolutely. Well, and that's really how First Priority started in South Florida. Our executive director, Chris Lane, was a youth pastor at a church in Fort Lauderdale, and he was talking to his students about, hey, you need to reach your friends, and they were like, well, how? And he had heard about First Priority when he was in college up in Alabama, and so he contacted First Priority and figured it out. He got some other youth pastors. They started on 4 campuses. And they had a vision that, you know what, if we ever got to 30 schools, we would just be killing it. Like, that would be amazing. Well, a year or so into it, they were starting to grow and starting to reach more students. And Chris actually had to come to a decision about, was he going to leave his job at a church, making a good salary and doing, having security and insurance and all those things, and was he going to step out and do this? And he really wrestled with that decision, and he stepped out to do it because he understood that students are on campus a majority of their time during the school week. And if we can bring the gospel to where they are, that's where they're going to be most receptive. And if they hear it from their friends, their Christian friends, they are going to be even more receptive. And so it's a matter of us understanding we're training Christian students to share their gospel story, and then giving them the resources and tools to reach their campus for the gospel. It's just a huge dynamic that, unfortunately, for a lot of years, the church has disengaged from school campuses, and we really need to engage.
A lot of it has been over fear, but
absolutely,
as long as we within the bounds of the law, which we are. Right. We're okay.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I appreciate. I remember, when you were leading at Centennial High School, my daughter would come home and be like, hey, Danny gave me this to share next week so I can be ready to lead. I'm going to be leading next week. And she would work on that and present that. And that was awesome because what it does is it gives students the ability to say, if I can do this here in front of this club, I can also do it when I'm sitting with my friend at lunch. I can also do it when my friend comes to me with a problem. I can bring the gospel into that situation. So it's helping students have those gospel conversations. Just makes all the difference in the world.
And I love how you use the term gospel conversation. A lot of people think when you're presenting the gospel that you got to go through this like big spiel and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we're teaching students how to share the gospel in ordinary conversation, because it's in those crisis moments when a friend of theirs finds out their mom has cancer or something like that. That it's in that situation where they can then bring the gospel to bear, and it doesn't feel like it's just some canned presentation.
Right.
It's very natural. They've learned how to do it in just ordinary conversation, which is important, which is what we all should be doing.
Yeah. Well, it was cool. Let me give you a great example. 2 years ago at one of our schools, a student came by, and it was the week that they were sharing the gospel, and they had pizza and stuff, and he just kind of came in and listened, and a student was just sharing their story about how Jesus had changed their life. And he listened and thought about it, and at the end made a decision for Christ. He came back the next week, and he told those students, he said, what nobody knows is that day I was planning to go home and commit suicide.
Wow.
But I came to club, I heard this student talk about how Jesus had given her hope, and it made me change my mind. It made me rethink it. And now that student, it not only did it prevent him from committing suicide, he started a brand new life with Christ, got connected to a church, got baptized, got plugged in, and is growing in his relationship with Christ. It was because one high school student was willing to get up and share what Jesus had done in her life that impacted this student. And we don't know what kind of stories are like that. What student is dealing with what? We just never know. And it's the obedience. Once we are obedient to follow that, it just makes such a difference.
Exactly. And I love how you just told that story, because I've told my students that so many times, that you never know what impact you might make at that very moment.
Yeah.
You might not even think it's powerful, and then later you find out what actually happened. And it's such an amazing story when you hear things like that. And it's encouraging to us guys as youth pastors that students are stepping up. They are listening to what you're actually saying, and they're doing it. You may not know that they're doing it, but they are doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome to hear that kind of positivity in a day and age where all we hear on the news is negativity. That we're hearing people coming to Christ. We're hearing about these stories that are coming out, even on public school campuses. Right.
Well, one of the things I love is I'll be with a group of people, we'll be talking, and something will come up about today's teenager or this generation or whatever, and it's a lot of times not very nice. It's negative, and I love being able to go, well, actually, let me tell you this story, and then let me tell you this story, and I can go on for hours with stories about how God has used students to change people's life. And it's a perspective that if you haven't been on a school campus, you don't get. I was talking to the same group of senior pastors that I was talking to before. I asked them, I said, when was the last time you were on a high school campus? And the guy said, 1978, when I graduated high school.
Wow.
And I said, here's what you need to understand. When you graduated high school in 1978 versus what campus is like today, there is nothing that's the same. And I said, you need to really go and spend some time on campus to fully understand what students are dealing with. And it just becomes an eye-opener to take adults onto a school campus and let them see what God is doing. It's pretty amazing.
Exactly. Well, if you're interested in definitely getting involved in this, just like what John said, make sure you check out firstpriority.cc. Look up all the resources they got on their website. It's an awesome place to go to. Get the resources you need. There's tons of stuff on that website, not just the First Priority stuff. But there's so many different resources that you can get. There's everything from T-shirts to the actual, like all the stuff with the First Priority logos. So if you're looking at potentially starting up a First Priority in your area, all the resources you really need are right there at your fingertips. And make sure, especially you hit the area where it says contact us.
Right.
If you're looking at doing that, make sure you contact them. John or somebody else with First Priority will definitely get back to you. And I promise you, this is going to change your area. It's going to change your perspective of how students, it's going to change how you do student ministry if you're a youth pastor, because you start to understand what it's like to be on their campus.
Right.
You see how they interact with their other people. You see as you're walking down the halls, the hallways to different areas in the schools, you see the students and you see the people whom you're actually praying for.
Yeah.
And it's so different when you can actually put a face to those people.
Yeah.
You're not just praying for the lost, you're praying for all these students all around you. And that used to be like one of the things, one of my students used to be like, you look so serious when you're walking down the hallway. And I told him, one, I'm claustrophobic, and two, I'm concentrating on praying. I'm looking around at these faces of these teenagers saying, these are the students we're praying for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes it so real when you can actually see the faces. And if you're a senior pastor and you don't have maybe you're at a small church, you don't have a youth pastor, I challenge you. Go ahead and start one of these up. Get in your schools. The smaller towns, some of them are even easier to get into than some of these schools down here.
Right.
Some of these counties are a little bit more challenging to get into the school system.
Yeah. Talking about that, let me share one story with you as we wrap up. But I have a friend, Wayne, who is a senior pastor at a very traditional, very small church here in town. Wayne is 66 years old, a former biker. When he got saved, he got really saved. And but he's a senior pastor at a church with no students, pretty traditional older congregation. But right around the corner from them was Port St. Lucie High School, and we didn't have a mentor for Port St. Lucie High School.
And that's a tough school.
That's a tough school. I went to Wayne. I talked to him. He was really excited. He was in a meeting of senior pastors, and he said, "I'm all in. Tell me what I can do." Wayne has gone every day for the last 2 years to Port St. Lucie High School. Every week, he's there training students, leading them to Christ. If Wayne, at 66 years old, with no students in his church, with no student ministry background, if he can do it, anybody can do it.
You don't got to be some young guy have the hipster look and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to have any of that.
You just have to have an obedient heart to serve Jesus. And
that is awesome.
And it's great. He's one of my favorite
I
favorite
know Wayne,
mentors.
and he's got such a sweet spirit about him. He's such a great guy.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see people get hungry for that and get hungry to reach even the younger generation. A lot of people do look on this next generation kind of with a negative attitude. But here's the thing, this next generation, if what we're seeing is true, all right, it is going to be an amazing generation for the gospel, because this generation is going to be all in one direction or the other.
Right. And
so if people think that the millennial generation was that kind of way, Gen Z, which is this next generation, is even more so.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be, if we can grab them at a young age and allow them to see Christ for who Christ really is, and they come to know Christ, we're going to have a generation that's completely on fire for Christ. It's coming into our churches and just bringing in a new wave of just a wonderful spirit about it and just genuineness to it.
Right.
Because this generation is they see through the fake.
Yeah.
They see through all of that. And they're the kids I've seen that are on fire. They're all in.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
all in. They don't wade in the little shallow end of the pool. They go into like the deep section.
Yeah, they're ready
right
to
off
go.
the bat. They're fully ready to go.
Yeah.
And so if that's something that you want to do, just contact First Priority. I know they'd love to get in contact with you. And so that's something that if you're looking into it, please go ahead and do that. Don't hesitate. Now's the time to do it, as we're now, we're filming this right at the tail end of June, beginning of July. And so, you want to make sure that you're doing those things now and kind of coordinate with what your school district is doing too. so that everything is ready to go and you can start up in the first part of the year and start off strong. Find those student leaders, find everything that you need to do. And so make sure that you're getting involved in those things.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
John, thank you so much for everything that you have done. It has been a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, man. It's been awesome being with
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.